Okay, I wanted to show you guys how I'm putting these masks together. The first thing you need to do is, and I'll put a link as to where you can get the patterns, but you want to make sure that your outside, your inside, and your face part is all the same size. So what I do is I cut out 2 pieces at a time, mirrored, then I put in my flannel layer. Then I lay them on top of each other with the flannel facing out. So you got right sides together of your main fabric. Then with a good 1/2 inch, I just sew all the way around. I do the same thing with my inside. And the inside, it's best to use 100% cotton on the out and the inside, and then you can use the flannel in the middle. And the reason why is because flannel tends to retain some moisture, and you don't want that against your face. Okay, so now I have both of my pieces sewn. I open up my main fabric and I push the seam all to one side. 2 reasons. One is I'm not going to press, I'm just finger pressing. I turn it to a 1/4 inch. So my foot is in the middle of the seam and my 1/4 inch is 1/4 inch on the outside. And then I slowly stitch that seam down. I'm simply finger pressing. Since I'm making so many, I don't want to get up and press this every 5 seconds. So I make sure, and I don't trim that, I just leave it. So now I've got my face part is done. Then I take my inside. This is going to be the part that goes against your face, and I put it right sides to right sides. I make sure that my edges are matching, and I just pin 2. Everyone has different ways of pinning. I'll say that pinning this way is the best so that when you sew, you can easily take the pins out. These are different than pinning when you're cutting patterns. This is just for sewing. So I'm going to make sure that all 3 of my layers are together. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Right sides to right sides. That means you should be able to see the seams on the outside. Now, once again, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch. There are a lot of threads in this little mask. So all I've done is sewn the sides. That's it, just the sides. Now I'm going to turn it inside out. And so you can see this is the part that's going to go against your face or whatever, and this is the part that's being shown on the outside. Now what I do once again is I finger press it down, making sure that the facing is in the back, and I do just a top stitch, holding down those sides. Same thing on this side. Now, when I go to finish it, you're going to have raw edges on the top and the bottom. Okay, ta-da! Almost there. Now what I do is I make myself a nice long strip of binding, whatever you want to call it. And I measure 14 inches. And then bottom of your mask facing up, on the inside, I'm going to pin it to one edge, making sure that all 3 layers are caught in there. Pin it in the middle. At that point, you can nest your seams if you want to. And at the end. Then I fold it in half. I measure my strap, and I'm going to cut it right there. Same thing with the top, except for at the top, I'm going to measure 18 inches. So I have 18 inches. Make sure that your binding is in half perfectly because you don't want to lose that edge when you go to sew it together. Because then you'll have to unpick it. This is a good time to nest your seams, which means if you have one seam going this way, you want the other seam to be going the other way. It avoids a little bit of bulk. And I try to generously pin this because I don't like unpicking. This little tip was my mother's tip on how to do the strap that goes all the way around. I tried to make straps where you pull them inside out. Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. No, thank you. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start right at the edge. Once again, I'm going to do a generous 1/2 inch, and there's a reason for this. When you go to make your straps, you want that 1/2 inch to help you. Look at all those threads, you guys. Stop right there. Now I'm going to do the top. And I'm going to once again do a generous 1/2 inch. Making sure to catch all 3 layers. Now right here, you want to be careful because you don't want to lose your nose piece. Go too far down. Of course, as long as you're getting all 3 layers, you can't go wrong. So see that little tip right there? I kind of cut it off, so I don't want that bulk. And this is a good time to trim some threads if you want to. I am covered in threads. The whole room is covered in threads. The whole house is covered in threads. Now, there we go. We have this generous 1/2 inch. I do not trim that. You can if you want to. You can if it's too bulky. I'm trying to make them so fast and in such a hurry that I don't normally trim them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lay that over and see where this generous 1/2 inch comes in right here. It helps you have the perfect fold. Now you can do whatever you want. If you want to be more precise, more precision, it takes a little bit longer, but I like to do a small zigzag. Secures to make sure that I'm getting every part of it. If it's going to be washed 1,000 times, this is really going to help keep it nice and closed. It's really hard to pop a zigzag, but you can do a straight stitch, whatever you want. Now when you get here, make sure that you're not pulling your mask up because you'll open the seam. Keep it nice and closed right there. And using that nice 1/2 inch turn that you had, now you can turn it over, pull your binding up, and just sew your whole strap. Nice and tight, not going to unravel, not going to get ruined. At the very end, this is really what takes me the very longest because I like to tuck in the ends here. And I kind of fold it in again. I hold that while I am sewing my strap. And then I'm going to spend another 10 minutes, probably longer than what it took me to sew the mask, just trimming all these threads. Don't get your fingers caught. Don't look at my fingers, they're dry from so much fabric using. And you have one side down. Now I turn around and I do it on the other side. Now it's either best to start in the middle of your mask and work out. Don't ever start at one end and go the other way. It's a recipe for disaster. It'll end up crooked or pinched or both. It's a good way to keep your... And my machine is mad at me because I just popped the thread. So I'm using a cone thread, which my machine is, she's very temperamental. She doesn't really like cone, but she's willing to work with me today. Okay. Now it helps if you have matching thread, but I have been known to use any color that is in my machine, but do what you have to. I might have to fast forward this for you guys because I'm sure you don't want to watch me sew the straps. Okay, so that's the bottom. Now for the top, this is the fun, tricky part and kind of a little tip. So what I have done is I've cut some floral wire. It's actually from the dollar store, so it's nice and light and it's hollow and it's super easy to cut. And I take my mask and I've cut this little tiny 1/4 inch piece, probably by 4.5 inches. And I like to just put it in here because I'm hoping that that wire doesn't rub on anyone's nose. So far, it doesn't seem like it does. So I just kind of stick it in there, and right in the middle. Then I fold it down. Now this is where I'm going to put the wire in. But first, I'm going to come out here about 2 inches, and I'm going to zigzag down right here. This is the beginning of my casing. Then I'm going to take right at the edge, and I'm going to go all the way down. And I'm going to stop right there. Then I'm going to take one of my about 3 1/4 inch pieces of wire, and I'm going to put it, thread it, but I try to put it above the little piece of batting I just stuck in there, or a little piece of fleece I just stuck in there. All the way in. Now this piece will help, and it's very flexible and it can be bent, but it is now right in the binding. Then I'm going to go to the end of that, and I'm just going to zigzag it closed. And I'm going to turn it and finish my mask. And now remember that the top straps are supposed to be just a tiny bit longer because your head is bigger around the top than it is around the neck. Another nice little tip is that when you actually put it on, it's better to tie around the neck and then tie up above your head. Now, with all of this being intact and inside and all that good stuff, you should be able to wash it 1,000 times without it coming undone, which is what I was shooting for. It ends up having 3 layers, and hopefully works as a nice protective mask. Now I make smaller sizes for the children because I don't like putting these ties on the children's masks. I kind of feel like they might be a little bit unsafe, but it's up to you. I do put the nose guard in some of them. Now the one thing about the little nose wire, yes, it's an extra, why do that, la la la, but if you wear glasses and you have that mask on, it fogs up your glasses. So it is a nice little, the other thing is it kind of seals around your face just a little bit more. This part freaks Steve out when I put my finger so close to the needle. So far so good maybe, huh? So now all I have to do is my last one over here. So always start in the middle, work your way out. Don't start at one end and go all the way across, because that is like, it'll stretch out the fabric a little bit. You'll be crooked. You'll have a big pinch at the end. You won't be happy. There's nothing worse than unpicking zigzag. Now, one of the rules that I have is I never backstitch, because you never know when you have to unpick. So if you're doing this little zigzag, that should be good enough. Now with the tie, you don't put a lot of stress on the seams. With you folding your seam over one way, it doesn't put a lot of stress on the seams. So I think it's a great pattern. A great way to make it nice and durable and can be washed 1,000 times. Now we do advise not washing with bleach. Warm water and detergent should be plenty to kill germs. And one is because we all know that this is 100% cotton, and bleach can deteriorate cotton. So, okay, ladies. Where am I? Ta-da! We have a mask. It is completed. And now I just have to trim all these threads. And it has the little nose pinchy, and it is right into the seam. So hopefully that makes some sense for you. All right, there you go.